The decision was made to remove the specifics. However, everything in my nation is specifics. Every detail has a name: stones, trees, fruits, seasons, and individuals. On July 23, 2024, at 8:40 a.m., an elderly woman emerged from the Silver Hair laundromat in East London. Red scarf, pale shirt, and naked face. No flashing cameras, no stage, no bodyguards. But within hours, that candid picture spread like wildfire. Julie Christie was that woman. The 1960s icon who once shook Hollywood with only an elevated brow and a pair of dejected eyes. Her gaze once made Warren Beatty fall in love. After being rejected, he wanted to marry her. She once played the Bond girl, received an Oscar, and then vanished. She didn't retire or bid farewell in a formal way. She disappeared as though the attention had never been intelligent enough to understand her. So what created a star once, revered across continents? She chose quiet. She sought to find what lay behind the glitz, behind the curated smiles and designer gowns. Behind the immortal characters was the spirit of an artist, a woman who refused to live under someone else's expectations. Julie Christie's journey is not just about cinematic glory. It's a quiet manifesto of personal freedom. To hold on to oneself, even if it means walking away. She was born on April 14, 1940, as Frances Julie Christie at a tea estate in Chabwa, Assam, where the mornings are misty and the earth breathes spice. Her father, Frank St. John Christie, managed a plantation, and her mother, Rosemary Ramdon, a Welsh painter, lived immersed in color and silence. From infancy, Julie stood between two realms, the strict colonial structure of British India and the uninhibited creativity of her mother. She had a half-sister, the product of a controversial relationship her father had with a local worker, something whispered about, an unspoken scandal that left early marks of contradiction on Julie's life. At 6, she was sent to England, uprooted from her vibrant Indian world and placed into foster care and convent schools where rules dictated life. The quiet became sharper, colder. Her rebellious streak showed early, expelled from one convent school for telling provocative tales. She was never one to obey silently. She would later acknowledge this period as one that left her feeling deserted, contributing to her reluctance toward traditional roles like marriage or motherhood. Later, she was sent to Paris to refine her French. At 9, she experienced a moment that would define her inner compass. She ran away for a day, spending it with a struggling young actor. His passion moved her. She didn't want fame. She wanted that freedom. To live lives, to explore identity, to escape the roles others assigned her. When she returned to England, she followed that yearning to the Central School of Speech and Drama in London, one of the most prestigious acting schools in the country. Julie didn't stand out because she was technically superior. Her brilliance lay in the authenticity she brought. She didn't perform to impress. She existed in the characters. At a time when acting was theatrical and overly stylized, Julie introduced rawness, modernity. Her presence made characters feel as though they had been drawn from the breath of real people. Her career began humbly in 1961 with the BBC's A for Andromeda, where she played a mysterious synthetic woman created in a lab. Even then, she brought a humanity to the role that made it impossible to look away. Julie Christie's allure was never confined to her beauty or fame. It resided in the quiet, magnetic tension of her presence, a combination of ethereal grace and sharp intellect. Directors and audiences were drawn to her subtle expressiveness, her ability to convey volumes with a glance, a pause, or silence. Her early comparison to Brigitte Bardot was quickly dismissed by those who recognized a deeper, more cerebral quality. In fact, when the BBC suggested a long-term contract, it was rejected, an act of artistic defiance that, in hindsight, was seen as a lost opportunity for them, but a crucial step in Christie's journey toward creative autonomy. She had no desire to be locked into a system that restricted her freedom to explore meaningful roles. Her breakout came unexpectedly when she replaced Topsy Jane in Billy Liar, stepping into the role with minimal preparation but full emotional immersion. Director John Schlesinger was struck by how she didn't act the part of Liz. She was Liz. The film's success positioned Christie as a voice of the 1960s feminist awakening. This momentum carried her into a career-defining year in 1965, where she delivered two vastly different but iconic performances, Diana Scott in Darling, which earned her an Academy Award, and Lara in Dr. Zhivago, where her restrained vulnerability became immortalized on screen. Each role expanded her range while reshaping how women were portrayed in cinema. Even her fashion choices became statements. At the Oscars, she wore a gold pantsuit she sewed herself, defying Hollywood's dress code and symbolizing a quiet revolution. As her career evolved, Christie selected complex, often non-commercial roles. Fahrenheit, 451, Far from the Madding Crowd, and McCabe and Mrs. Miller among them, eschewing superstardom for integrity. Her performances in later years, particularly in Afterglow and Away from Her, added further depth to her legacy. She portrayed aging, memory loss, and emotional resilience with raw authenticity, earning multiple nominations and admiration from medical professionals and critics alike. Behind this glowing resume was a woman who fiercely guarded her independence. She spoke multiple languages, lived in different countries, and never let fame dictate her choices. Her connection with actor Terence Stamp, an intellectual companionship rooted in long conversations about art and politics, was emblematic of her relational style: thoughtful, profound, but never clingy. As Stamp once said, Julie didn't need anyone to help her shine. She simply did. Julie entered rooms quietly, commanding attention without demanding it. People naturally hushed around her, drawn to her calm yet intense presence. This quiet magnetism mirrored her relationship with Terence Stamp, whose early career coincided with hers. As Julie began to gain prominence in the UK, Stamp was increasingly spending time in the US, pulled by different ambitions. Their relationship slowly unraveled, not from betrayal or bitterness, but from a divergence in paths. Even after parting, they spoke of each other with mutual respect and reflection. Stamp admitted to being mystified by Julie, describing her as someone whose silence could speak louder than words. Julie, on her part, seldom discussed him publicly, but once noted, "He understood me more than I understood myself." Before her rise to global fame, Julie shared a quiet, nurturing relationship with painter Don Besant. Meeting in 1962, when her career was still forming, Don offered her a space of calm detachment from fame. Their bond was tender and unpretentious. Julie could exist as herself, free of makeup, free of pressure. Engaged, but never married, they lived together in a modest London apartment. Don disliked publicity, which suited Julie's preference for a private life. As her career surged post-Darling, she began traveling more, while Don yearned for a grounded life. Their relationship quietly dissolved, not from conflict, but from the slow pull of differing desires. Julie never publicly detailed the end, only reflected that they had needed different things. She moved forward, always gently, without spectacle. Julie. Christie's life unfolds like a quiet rebellion, a graceful defiance of the expectations placed on women in the spotlight. Her romances were marked not by scandal or spectacle, but by a deep yearning for connection without compromise. With producer Brian Eno, she found brief peace in the English countryside, a shared world built on mutual respect, creativity, and a shared distaste for media intrusion. It was a life lived off the grid, away from public curiosity. Yet many of her relationships followed a similar arc: fleeting, meaningful, and ultimately quiet departures. Whether it was Jim McBride, Terry, O'Neill, or Lou Adler, each man brought a different energy, but none matched her inner rhythm. They came, they shared, and they left, without bitterness, only acceptance. Her connection with Duncan Campbell, a journalist rooted in truth and justice, brought her something lasting. They did not marry in any conventional sense. Their love required no declarations, no confirmation, no ceremony. Julie once laughed off the rumors of their secret wedding in India, her dismissive quip revealing her deep sense of autonomy. Together they lived out of the spotlight, raising sheep, planting trees, walking through the Welsh hills. While others pursued immortality through fame, Julie found hers in authenticity, in her rare ability to remain whole while the world changed around her.